All right, we are ready to get back to our board meeting. It is time. And so we are ready for the next item on our agenda, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have someone?
We do, President
Will.
Tatum. We have a student from Topeka West coming on up, and our board candidates will join us as well in this Pledge of Allegiance. Can you share your name?
I'm Kivrin.
And what year are you at Topeka West?
I'm a junior next year.
So we ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we didn't get the camera on Kivrin, so while she takes a seat, often board members have a question or two for you. You want to come back up for a moment? Just briefly, board members, do you have a question
Sure.
or two for Kivrin?
Does anyone have any questions, brief questions? Mrs. Bowley?
How come you're here? It's summertime.
My mom is one of the candidates, so I came to support her.
So which one? Well, how awesome are you to come support her when she's usually supporting you, right?
Yeah.
What a nice partnership. So glad you're here today.
What elementary school and middle did you go to?
I went to McCarter and then Landon and Avondale.
All right, nice to have you
You did
here.
an excellent job.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay. I think we are now ready to adopt the agenda, and so I'm looking for a motion to do that.
I move the board adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. And do we have a second? Mr. Mignot seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll vote on it. Thank you. All right. The next item on our agenda, we would normally have school highlights at this time, but we have instead tonight the presentation of the board vacancy candidates. And so we're going to hear from the members of the public, the community, who have applied for the District 3 board vacancy. And so at this time, we would welcome the board candidates to make their 3-minute presentations. And let me just go ahead and kind of lay out what the expectations are going to be just for consistency's sake. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the board. We ask that your remarks to the board be respectful. As school board members, we have to make sure the privacy rights of all USD 501 employees are protected. If you have a complaint against a specific employee, excuse me, please submit your written complaint to the superintendent. If your comments are about an employee, please provide general information only along with your opinion about the employee's contributions and strengths. Please do not defame other employees or make accusations about an employee. Board Policy 2050 requires all complaints to be made and resolved at the lowest administrative level. When a complaint is made directly to the board, it is referred to the superintendent and building principal for investigation and resolution. Thank you. Thank you in advance. So we will just go in the order in which I have them in front of me. So our first board candidate is Lisa Staley.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Lisa Staley.
Lisa, thank you.
I live at 5233 Southwest Bell Terrace in Topeka. I've lived in Topeka 23 years. Both my parents were teachers where I grew up in Illinois, and I came here to Topeka and to Kansas to work at the library after I got my master's degree at the University of Illinois. I'm currently the Community Connections Librarian at the Topeka Shawnee County Public Library, which is where I've worked ever since I've been in Topeka. The library helps me get to know the entire community and help them with everything that's on their minds and everything that they that they want and need, or at least that's how it feels. In my work, I work with coalitions, I work with community resources, I do coaching, I do facilitation, I help with public deliberation. So it's the meaty stuff of being a human, and I love it. I have 2 kids. You met one of them. They'll both be at Topeka West next year. When my oldest entered kindergarten in 2013, I wanted to be like one of those parents who just donates and doesn't help. And other parents helped teach me that we all bring our time and our talents also. And they mentored me and they helped me see that I want to serve. I want to serve on the school board to represent my community and my fellow parents and my community. I want to help support the great evidence-based decisions our board makes to help with equity issues in our community and help benefit all of our students and teachers and staff. I really love Topeka. I have the flag in front of my house. I love the way that we center the interests of Topekans in our schools and in our public education district. I followed and supported the board more consciously since I had kids. I've intentionally bought 3 houses now to stay in Topeka 501 for my kids. The 501 bond issue in 2014 was my first political yard sign that I ever put in my yard. I've continued learning how to support public education and how to try to make a difference. And that's what I would be interested in helping do with this board.
All right. Thank you so much. The next letter to the board that I see is from Jeremy Gibson.
I'm Jeremy Gibson. Address is 928 Southwest Fraser Avenue. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to briefly speak to you on concerning the position of recent vacancy on the school board in my interest. As the filing of the vacancy is difficult or is different than a traditional campaign, in as much as I'm not engaging with the entire community, but engaging with individuals representing the entire community, I will remind you of what I've been a part of during my 19 years as an employee in 501. Most of you know I was the president of NEH Topeka. I was also part of the district's pioneering effort to create the Equity Council and served it for numerous years. Our highlights were the big read that we did across the community of the courageous conversations about race. Also, we had we were in New Orleans and were recognized there for our efforts by courageous conversations. We also had Michelle Obama come and speak to our graduates. I also wrote Michelle Obama a letter thanking her for coming because she came. Not the entire community was not overjoyed, but I was. And so I was ecstatic when I got a letter back from her. And that's probably one of my highlights. Excuse me, on the financial side, I was part of the study to make recommendations for budget cuts during the 2006, whichever the year was. I was on that committee. We made various recommendations for budget cuts, of which we had to do some hard cuts. And one of the cuts we did was wrestling. And as a wrestling coach at the middle school level, we just eliminated wrestling. That hurt, but I understood. I also understand that girls wrestling is the fastest growing sport in the nation today. So I'll just throw that out there. I've taken on challenges for volunteering to transfer to Avondale Academy when we pioneered that effort. I was one of the staff members there at Avondale. And when asked to consider the challenge of homebound students, I accepted that challenge. And then we had the pandemic. So that was a short adventure. And when I left Topeka High, teachers and students were shocked. And as I told them, my daughters are coming, and I wanted them to have the experiences of having their own experience and not with dad. They thanked me, and I don't really know how to take that. At any rate, what I do want to express is I find joy in doing difficult and hard things. Whether it's stepping away from a school or a district to challenge myself and build new successes, well, I think that's pretty cool. And that's what I put my name in on the, excuse me, put my name on the dotted line. Not one of you will be excuse me, not one of you will be considering my interests will say I lack passion for public education, nor will you say the community will be outraged if you chose me. And I thank you for your time. I will await questions when we come to that time.
Thank you. Let me also mention at this time, just so all the candidates are kind of clear on how this process is going to unfold. This is the first time that we as a board are doing this, and I don't think that anybody envisioned that we would have to replace one of our members. But this process is designed to allow for you all to participate by sending in your information ahead of time, which you've done, and then allotting you some time to address the board in the formal meeting session. When this process is done, there may be an opportunity for you to answer questions from specific board members about something that you shared with us, or a particular part of your background and life experience, work history, things like that. So just, kind of be prepared that we may call you back up to the podium to answer some specific questions. We are looking at finalizing this process tonight, if possible. So there will likely be a decision tonight on who joins the board, and that process will play out after all the questions are done and after the board has a chance to deliberate on it and move into that part of our selection process. Okay. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your engagement in our district and wanting to serve on the board. All right. The next person, Amanda Grody.
Hi, my name is Amanda Grody. I live at 1331 Southwest Pembroke Lane, just a few blocks from Whitson Elementary, which is where my oldest, who's 5, will be starting kindergarten in August. We've been in Topeka just a few years. We chose to move here during the pandemic, and we've really enjoyed it and has become our home, and we have no intention of moving. I have 3 children, 5 and under, and I want to participate on the board because I know how important our school is to our community. While we are new to Pecans, we understand the importance that the school has on the safety in our community, the future of our community, and essentially how we are going to thrive as Topeka. I am on the board at my son's preschool. Obviously does not compare to this board. However, I am very familiar with what the board setup is like, as well as a lot of the, the political procedures that go along with being on the board. My kids go to Discovery School, the Montessori school on 17th and Collins. And so I've been participating on their board because there's a lack of parent interest. And I was happy to join, and we still struggle with that. And I anticipate that that is probably an issue as well at such a dynamic school as Topeka. Anyway, my background is in public health. I do not come from educators. I don't have the master's in education. What I do have is public health. I have a master's in public health from University of Missouri, which is where we are from, but we are now Kansans. I have great experience when it comes to working with community members, whether it be the very young or the very old. I have the knowledge base from having my bachelor's in science and working with evidence-based, data-driven, and making sure that we are evaluating our outcomes effectively. Currently, I'm an adjunct instructor at UMKC virtually, and I teach a few classes, including research methods, as well as health education. Health education is my passion, and I'm able to help students understand the importance of how we communicate information to our community members. While health may not be the idea or the ideal forefront for education, it is a very important part, because if students are not healthy, they're not going to learn. They're not going to be able to be successful, and most importantly, aren't going to be able to be the successful product out in our community. So I may not have the education background or experience in the schools as many of you have had, but I do have a lot of passion, and I would love to be on the board.
Thank you. All right, the next candidate. Excuse me, Sanella Hasanovic Little. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name.
Oh, that is completely fine. It's actually right, correct. So, hello, I'm Sanella Hasanovich Little. And since English is my second language, I do not take offense if you ask me to clarify or repeat what I need to say, right? So, the address is 5233 Southwest 24th Street, near McClure Elementary School. So that's where my son went to. I've been a resident of Topeka since 2006. We moved here directly from Bosnia and Herzegovina. So as a single parent here, all these years were dedicated to following my son's education and integration to the community. Now my son is at Washburn. He graduated from 501 last year, and I am able to maybe expand my support to the local community. Throughout his education, I was participating, through Cub Scouts, PTOs, DCAC, etc. And that's about it. Professionally, it's a little bit of mix, because prior to coming to the United States, I was in inorganic chemistry, and during the war, in a special education here, I actually had to start everything from the scratch. So I got my BA in psychology, MBA, and currently I'm working in it's a PhD or PsyD in health psychology. So that's my passion, I guess, because of all the experiences back in Bosnia during 90s. I am slightly nervous of this speaking, so I'm not used to talk about myself this much. I am really a lifelong learner. I am proponent of the quality education. I do believe that the future is on children, and it's up to us to give them that future. I sincerely, the observation I made all these years is I believe that we lack a parental component in supporting our kids achieve their goals, and things like that. So that's something that I would be interested in, whether through Board of Education contributions or, on the side. Thank you. I don't know what time it is, if it's over 3 minutes, but that's about it. I will be open to questions after, if any. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, candidate number 5 is Ashley Beeson.
I was hoping that you called my name otherwise. That would have been confusing. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Beeson. I reside in District 3 at 1265 Southwest Pembroke Lane here in Topeka. I believe Amanda and I must be neighbors. So I am also in the Whitson district. Before I get into what I have to say about myself, I do want to say I feel a sense of relief in listening to everyone speak here tonight. What a wonderful group of candidates we have who seem so passionate and supportive of public education. So I'm, as a parent, very pleased that these are the people you have to choose from. I have lived in Topeka. I've largely lived in Topeka since 1998, taking a couple stints away, and I always find my way back. This is the community that I chose to raise my 3 young daughters in, and specifically chose USD 501 for their educations. So that is where I own my home. I am a lifelong student. I can't seem to stay out of college for very long. So this is my longest time away from coursework I've had in a while. I attended bachelor's or university for my bachelor's degree at K-State, master's degree at Emporia State, and my doctorate at the University of Arkansas, all in education. So I come to you primarily as a mother, but also as a former educator. I spent about 13 or 14 years in public, private, and university classrooms, and public education truly has my heart. My children have attended a couple of different schools in the district. My oldest started at Scott Magnet in the dual language program, which was a phenomenal experience. She was there for 2 years before changes in our personal life kind of instigated that we go to our neighborhood school of Whitson, where we were able to transfer her to the Spanish enrichment program, and it has really been flawless for us as well. My younger two both attended all-day pre-K at McCarter with Miss Tina and Miss Maria Elena, who are the most wonderful humans. And all 3 of my children will be in one place this school year, one drop-off, one pickup at Whitson Elementary. When I learned of the vacancy, I will tell you that I weighed very carefully whether to put my name in the hat. I want to make sure that I have the capacity to truly engage in the way that this district and our patrons and constituents deserve. And I have come to the conclusion that I do, and I would deeply regret not pursuing this opportunity. While I no longer teach in the classroom, I now work in legislative affairs. I was primarily a middle school teacher, and the transition to the legislature is not all that different from middle school. So I have found a home there, and while I miss my students very deeply, I am so proud to still continue so many relationships with my former students. Students who actually I run into at the State House because they now intern in legislative offices. Teaching has been certainly the most rewarding career I could have imagined. Now I teach in a different way and I advocate in a different way. But at the heart of what I've always done is advocacy. I believed myself to be a facilitator in the classroom and an advocate for my students and their families. I watched from the beginning of my teaching career, which wasn't all that long ago until I left, though, the changes in society and what a school has to provide to its students and the families. And that is a huge responsibility. And I know one that this district takes very seriously, that I'm very proud to be a part of. So as a board member, a potential board member, I would just like to say that I see so clearly that public education, public school districts are the backbones of our communities. Legislatively, I see it across the state of Kansas when schools don't make it, towns don't make it. They are the center of our communities. They keep our families engaged. They prepare our future contributing residents. And I think they're a big reason that we retain Topekans as well. So I think 501 and all public school districts need defenders of and advocates for public education now more than ever. Would be honored to be one of those as a board member. I hope that teachers feel appreciated, know their worth, and that all students get the support they need to be successful, to feel loved and nurtured. Our community should benefit from an education system that prepares our kids to go out and be themselves, whether that's here in Topeka or elsewhere. Anyway, as a proud parent of children in this district, I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Fellow board members, questions for any of the candidates or general questions for all of the candidates to respond to? Yeah, Dr. Bonebreak. Dr. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
I have some specific questions for individuals, also a general question.
That's fine.
And the general question would be, what do you think is the most significant issue facing the school district over the next 2 to 4 years?
Okay. And so that's a general question for all the candidates, correct, Dr.
Yes.
Bonebreak?
Correct.
So if you would just come up to the microphone at the podium to answer that question, and then you can take turns, and as soon as you've answered the question, you're free to sit back down and the other person can come up. Let's do that. So it would be Miss Staley that would answer first.
Hi.
Hi.
I think that in the next 2 to 4 years, that the district will have to face issues of like post-pandemic changes that kids experience. We're seeing differences in kids at the library in how they have socialized or interacted or been interacted with. And I think that it will become really glaringly obvious to all of us as a society and a world, and that the problems won't be unique to Topeka, but that we will have to address them in Topeka. Not just catching up, but the ways that people's brains change, the ways that their relationships change, the ways that their families change, the ways that expectations changed and understandings of the world. So I think that that will be one of the biggest issues that we have to face, because we can't ignore it.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson.
My opinion, the most important change or thing we're going to have to address, sir, is our over-reliance on technology. Case in point, papers can be written by artificial intelligence. So that means our students aren't learning skills, they're learning how to cheat a system or beat a system. Also, with that, with technology comes the fact that it's hard, students are having a hard time making eye contact. They're too invested in their phones. We have districts across the nation that are banning cell phones from schools, from the classroom. I'm trying to think which district was in California that just did. LA, sorry, it's the largest, not the largest district, but close to the largest district in the nation is doing away with cell phones. Can't bring them. Those are things that we're going to have to address, because I know I'm just as guilty of it as well. And I tell my students that in my classroom, is like, look, we can disengage from our phones. I have a hard time doing it. And I know you're having a hard time doing it because they've been raised with technology surrounding them, instantaneous gratification. So and that's something that I'm seeing personally. And in fact, I ate lunch today with, I work construction in the summers, and I'm sitting at Subway having a sandwich with my boss of all things. And he had noticed that there was a set of parents that had their kids, they had their iPads, they had headphones on, and they didn't say one word to their kids. They were watching whatever it is that they were watching. I don't know what it was, but regardless, they're not engaging with kids. And that's not just a school problem, it's a societal problem. And it's manifesting itself in our classrooms.
Thank you. Ms. Grody.
I foresee a major problem being with teacher retention, staff retention. I think that many school districts, probably across the US, are struggling to fill the positions necessary, as well as on the cusp of baby boomers retiring. I anticipate that filling those vacancies will be challenging. Before this position became vacant, I looked at a 501 position and I applied for a 501 position. However, I was not able to go forward with it because I don't have my degree specific to education. And while that is not on this specific school district, it is at the state of Kansas level. I think that it's important that we look into a plan to make our students into future teachers so that they can come back and teach students of our future. So retaining the teachers and staff and making sure that they're able to contribute to the school.
Thank you. Ms. Hasanovic Little. Thank you.
In my opinion, it is the mental health of the students and the staff. Now, when I say mental health, I believe it's the issues stem from variety of the reasons in the backgrounds, whether it's a socioeconomic or, post-pandemic, etc. So, but I do believe that this is the issue that is in the background of many things that we see happening in the district, or in the country, period. So that is in short. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And Ms. Beeson.
I don't know the district's data on this, but I would agree that highest quality teacher recruitment and retention should be a primary area of interest for any school district. As a teacher who, had a career in education and did make the choice to leave, I think that especially post-pandemic, we see those exits. I think it's difficult to attract young people into the profession, even those who really have a heart for it, for many reasons. And so we cannot have quality learning spaces and classroom experiences and schools that can support the whole child without recruiting that highest quality of teacher and also investing in them and keeping them there and improving and learning. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Dr. Bonebreak, you had a specific question for a specific candidate?
Well, I don't want to monopolize. I let other people ask because I've got half a dozen.
Oh, do you? Okay. Well, in that case, does anyone else want to jump in before Dr. Bonebreak goes down his barrage of questions? Mr. Munoz.
My question is, what is your understanding of the proper role of a board member? We're all a team, board members, administration, teachers, students, we all play a particular role. What do you understand your role to be as a board member? And I'd like if we could sort of switch up the order just to sort of mix it up, if you don't mind.
Sure. Okay. And that's a general question for everyone?
For everybody, yeah.
Okay. We'll go in the reverse order. Ms. Beeson.
My understanding of the function of a board is that we have a superintendent that leads the district. The school board hires and retains the superintendent, evaluates the performance of the superintendent. The superintendent in conjunction with the board. Well, the board, I think, makes sort of the decisions of priorities for the district, and then the superintendent is tasked with implementing those plans, and the board continues to evaluate progress of that implementation. Everything kind of trickles down from the superintendent, but that relationship between the board and superintendent is how the board leads. I also believe that board members, personally, I always appreciated the presence of board members in schools, knowing who they were and that they knew the wonderful work going on in the district as well. So.
Thank you. Ms. Hasanovic Little. Ms. Hasanovic Little, would you do us a favor and get a little closer to the microphone? I think some folks are having more difficult. There you go. That's perfect.
Oh,
Thank you.
is this better?
Yes.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
In general, I would mirror my colleagues' statement in the function of the Board of Education and the superintendent. It is trickling down towards the community. In my understanding, the board members also have an important role in the community in their own districts. I do have to admit that personally, if I understood well, this specific candidate, this is a temporary, oh, I apologize. Is it overtime? Oh.
No, you're fine.
Okay, what I mean is this particular candidate that you are all voting for tonight is a temporary function until the next general elections, which are in November, correct?
That is correct.
Very
Not this
good.
November.
Oh, next November. In that case,
That's okay.
I should not continue because I was going to say this would be a perfect opportunity, hypothetically speaking, if I was to be a member. This would be a wonderful opportunity where we all see how we fit, whether I fit into the board or how the board, how do we fit actually like that. But in my mind, that was this November. So it's a little bit longer commitment. Very good. Did I answer the question? So sorry. Yeah.
Yes, I think
Thank you.
that was appreciated. Thank you. All right. And Ms. Grody.
As I mentioned, I'm on the board at Discovery Montessori School. And while not this big, we are mighty. So my understanding as a board member is to participate, bring a different, fresh perspective as a parent, as a community member, to contribute to the decisions, be a checks and balances. We have different committees that can break out and do different investigations. My role at Discovery as a board member is the technology side of things. We do a parent survey every year. And again, we're talking about 40 students. So a much different capacity. However, I imagine that the role here would be very similar of being dedicated, committed, making sure that we are student focused and that we're making the best decision for our community and the students.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson, I believe.
In relation to what a board's members' responsibilities are, there are the legal issues that we have to make sure that we are being responsible with the finances. The superintendent's giving suggestions on what she would like to implement, and you vote on those. And as well as a board, you give recommendations. It's in the packet that are the superintendent's goals for the 23-24, sorry, 24-25, I think, school year. Anyway, but there's also things that the unspokens, that the community expects. And sometimes it is with any elected position. I've done it. There's times where you're like, I don't know if I signed up for that. And that was sometimes like what I thought when people came to me with concerns as not board president, I'm sorry, the NEA Topeka president, they would come to me and voice concerns. So sometimes you're an ear for them to complain to. And then at the end, they just say, that's all I gotta say about that. And other times I would have to instruct individuals that that's not what the contract says. I know that's what you wanted to say, but it doesn't say that. And so you have to bounce between roles of being the ear for someone to speak into, and also play the legal roles.
Thank you. And Ms. Staley.
Hi. I've been trying to think of a great metaphor to previous board experience I have, and there's not one because this board is a big deal. There's only a few of you, and you help set the policy directions for the school district, which is a lot of kids and a lot of employees in our community. But you're setting towards the superintendent to enact things. The closest metaphor I had was I was on the board of Oral Health Kansas, which is a statewide oral health organization. But that board, while similar, was over 4 employees. And that's quite different. Otherwise, I've only had experience on working boards. And I think that this is a board that does a lot of work, but that the rules are very clear in the ways that you focus on your part of the work and other people do the implementation of that work. So some of my experience would be more in the realm of the kind of PTO working board where it's just you and the treasurer and you're friends for life now because you pulled off the carnival together, or Heartland Healthy Neighborhood where there are no paid positions when I was on it and everybody worked to try to enact the goals. So I think that this board has beautifully clear roles and beautifully clear responsibilities that are different from other experiences I've had, but I'm very interested in being part of that and seeing the ways that those policies and the budget priorities and the goals for the district can help shape things that other people take the lead on implementing.
Thank you. Any additional questions?
Well, I have a couple more.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Wilmer.
For Ms. Hasanovich Little. I see you have some Six Sigma experience. And I have always wondered how we determine the child being at grade level. And they always say, well, this is what the Kansas Board of Education says. Well, where do they get the information? Well, it's from a National Board of Education. Well, where do they get there? I wonder if it isn't comparing to an international standard. If so, teaching is different in Europe than it is here. Is it not?
From personal perspective, yes, it's very different. From Six Sigma perspective, I do not know where would I start comparing. But in Europe, in general, I would not be able to answer to that question. However, only for a small part of Europe, which is Slavic or Balkan Peninsula, teaching there to what I can compare here and there are very, very different. And requirements are very, very, very different. So I do not know which system is better. Maybe neither. Maybe there is a room for improvement in both.
Isn't your school year a month and a half longer in Europe?
Oh, wow. Well, first, the schedules, children's schedules are different. we had a morning and the afternoon shift. We never had this long school day. I mean, it's amazing how kids function fully on these long hours. Yes, we do have a different semesters lengths. Pretty much they cover everything, but we also have I think here it ends in May, over there it ends in June. The school there starts in September, here it starts in August. It's a very different from my perspective, and that's why it took me such a long time to follow my son, and that's why I needed to be involved, because I did not understand this school system.
Yeah. No, it's
It-
different in Spain, France, Germany, and Scandinavia.
I was talking only about former Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
That's very limited.
And may I ask?
Yeah, go ahead, Dr.
Okay,
Bonfrey.
Dr. Beeson, what was your dissertation topic?
My dissertation topic was I created and implemented a community activism curriculum in my middle school gifted education classroom. So each grade level, 6th, 7th, and 8th, they determined a community problem that they wanted to attempt to solve. I created a problem-solving sort of pathway for them. I think it's human nature that when we notice a problem, we immediately want to solve it, and kids are no different. So there was a lot of identifying the problem, researching the problem, interviewing those who were impacted by the problem, brainstorming solutions, learning which of those solutions have been implemented before we actually took an action plan. And so each grade level chose a different problem. My 6th graders looked at how to fund mobile hotspots for our school district for those who didn't have internet in their homes, because we had just recently gone to a one-to-one device where all students had iPads that they took home and were expected to do homework. My 7th grade students wanted to work on the dangers of texting and driving, so theirs was very much a marketing campaign. And then my 8th graders, they wanted to work on financial literacy in the community, and they recruited financial advisors and professors from KU to do an event at the public library where community members could come in. Ultimately, my dissertation was 3 articles, and I focused on how that experience impacted the self-concept of the female students particularly. It was qualitative and quantitative, and those girls in particular reported an increase in self-concept, self-esteem. Those are many of the students that I still have close relationships with today. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bowley.
Go ahead.
It sounds like he's got a lot more.
So this question would be for each candidate. I'm going to use the word agenda in the best light, not the light that you see nowadays in the news. But is there a specific interest or agenda that you would like to bring to the board because of your experiences in life?
It's a good question. Let's start with Ms. Grody.
As I mentioned, public health is my education and professional background I'm trying to do the math, 15 years working in the public and being in the public. Agenda-wise, I think that there is a lot that can be brought to the board when it comes to, we talk about bullying being a very big problem and making sure that we tackle different issues that are going on. I know previously it was mentioned, talking about mental health, even just talking about mental health with students, not just addressing the issue specifically, but for me, it would just be health, making sure that health is first, because as I said before, without a healthy student, they're not going to be focused on learning. If they don't have all aspects of health, they're not going to be able to go on and contribute to our society after graduation. So making sure that we put that first.
Thank you. Dr. Beeson.
I think two focuses for me would be an emphasis on educating the whole child, that if children are coming to school hungry, unsupported at home, all these different barriers indicate whether a child's going to be ready and able to learn or not. Having young children in the district, I see incredible efforts in that area already that I've been very pleased with. The other would be general equity concerns across all schools, ensuring equitable resource allocation, ensuring that our staff are as informed and educated on issues of equity as well.
Thank you. Ms. Staley.
I think my life experience has led me to really think about equity a lot. I grew up in Collinsville, Illinois, which is 10 miles from East St. Louis, Illinois, and it was extremely racially segregated. And I saw that as a kid and was like, oh, that doesn't seem right. And I didn't stay there to try to fix things. But when I got to Topeka, I pay attention to those kinds of things and I see them differently than I think I would if I wasn't from where I'm from. And then financial and resource equity. When I went to college at University of Illinois, most people were from Chicago and they thought the rest of the state was downstate and not in a good way. And I saw, having been, in the top of my class where I was from, I was nothing because of the resources they'd had in their schools. And so I've paid attention to the ways that education systems and communities teach people their worth, teach people in ways we don't intend, teach people what is possible for them or what is expected of them in different ways. And I think it's really important that we teach our kids in 501 their worth in the best ways. And I think we do a good job, but that is my experience.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson.
Please repeat the question.
Oh, I wanted to know if you had a specific idea or agenda that you wanted to bring as a board member to this board.
There's a few, but one that I would really like to see happen and is it's a direct result of the pandemic. There was a time when we had an equity council in which we were going all over the place. We were going to having meetings in churches. We had meetings at the library. We had various things trying to get the community back, not back into, but into investing themselves into our schools. Are we doing that now? Not as well as we once were, and that's no reflection on anybody other than everyone trying to re-navigate after the pandemic. Because let's be honest, after the pandemic, the things I used to do, that I felt obligated to do, I don't feel obligated anymore, and I feel just fine. And that's happened across our community, and not just ours. I'm talking worldwide. I'm sure of it. Getting us back into the same spaces, or having board meetings in different spaces. We've had them in the past. We've had them at Ross. We've had them I can't remember if we had them at Whitson. I know I've been to meetings at Whitson, but regardless, we have to, in my mind, we have to get out and put ourselves in those spaces. I'd like to see that with the Equity Council. I think the Equity Council was great when we got the community engaged. I'd just like to see that happen again.
Thank you. Ms. Hasanovic Little.
Well, I had to quickly think which two agendas would be my priority, and that is developing life skills or putting an accent on the actually life skills in our kids. Unfortunately, I have to say that my son is not ready to live as adult. I'm glad that he chose Washburn here to be close home. I think our kids need to be ready to do everything. My mom was always telling me, no, learn everything, learn to do everything, know how to do everything, but you don't know anything. So I just needed to have it in my back pocket should I need to use it. So throughout my life, I really find that self-resourceness, being resourceful and sufficient, being do-it-yourself person, very helpful. So that's one of the things. Another one is, I think that I may be wrong, but this is my perception. We are such a huge country. This is, an entire continent, right? That we very often forget that there is a world around. And I would love to actually present something that there is a school and education outside of the facilities. So that is actually to say that maybe, creating a global person, the student that is fit for a global world. Today is, we are in a world of globalization. Information and the moving around is very easy. And I don't know that our kids are actually exposed fully to that diversity of the cultures, of the backgrounds, of the different traditions. That's all part of that, creating the skills, life skills to fit in, to adjust, to appreciate, to develop humility towards everything that is surrounding us. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bonebrake, do you have additional questions?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how to word it, but for Mr. Gibson, I appreciated your cell phone comment. I see them as weapons of mass distraction. But you're employed by another school district and to be on the school board of another one, is that a conflict or is that a positive thing?
I'll be short, no. We have
Okay.
employees in our district that have been school board members in other districts.
Okay. And Ms. Bully had asked one of my other questions, so
Did you have any additional questions, Dr.
I
Bonebrake?
think I will retire. I think we could easily replace 5 of us with a candidate.
This has been a great discussion. I think this is very much the vein of what we were hoping to have in terms of the conversation with all of you fantastic candidates. Anyone else have any
So mine, it can just be a raise of hands, and Ms. Whiteman will laugh at me, as probably most of my board members as well. How many of you actually went and know or looked at where our policies are? You can just raise your hands if you have, and if you haven't, it's okay. It's okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. I have a question for, with the same vein of question that Mrs. Schmidt just asked. How many of you went to the district website and did some background research on us as board members? Raise your hand. Okay. Okay. Good. Good. I think that's
They had to decide if they wanted to even.
exactly
Work with this motley crew.
That's scary.
I suspect more to the point of figuring out, what everyone else brings to the table and, who do I have commonalities with that, might gel together, as a board member. Yeah, this has been a great conversation. And if none of the board members have any additional questions, I think we'll close out this portion of the meeting. And Ms. Lister, help me remember, are we going to go through the rest of the agenda before we get to the point in which we're voting? Okay. No public communications. Okay. All right. So we can skip past that and continue on with the disposition of business by consent.
I move the board approve the items of business by consent as presented and authorize the board president or superintendent to sign the special project and purchasing contracts for and on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Dr. Schumacher. Do we have a second for that motion? Mrs. Schmidt seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, you've all heard the motion. We'll vote on it. Thank you so much. Okay, that takes us to the superintendent's report.
We are so excited that we had a wonderful summer experience. And this evening, we have Dr. Gardner that is, let's see if he's online or in the room. Is Dr. Gardner in this space? He's online. I believe he is actually on vacation, but he was excited to be able to share with you. Next week, or the next board meeting, you'll have the full summer presentation. Dr. Mejia will have all of our enrichment camps and all of those. Dr. Gardner won't be available at that time, and we know that he piloted the extended school year. So he's here to share with us a little bit about the extended school year and how that went. So we'll pull up the PowerPoint and turn this over to Dr. Gardner.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Anderson, President Tatum, and Board of Education for having me speak on the Ross Extended School Year. We had 60 students enrolled in our program. We had grades kindergarten through fourth grade. Students were in the same or current grade they ended the last school year. During the instructional time, students had 1 hour of math and 1 hour of reading daily. The key components of our program, we had really small groups, and we had 1 certified and 1 classified per room. And in some rooms, we actually had an EL pair that helped translate some of those small groups instead of having the teacher do it. We really focused on filling the gaps of standard content base from the previous year's assessment and the teacher collaboration before we ended the last school year. To try to keep it as traditional school year as possible, we were fortunate to have our music teacher, our librarian, and then we actually had physical education as well. To measure the academic growth, when we look at next year, we're going to look at the spring map to the fall map of the 60 students enrolled in our program. I wanted to get some feedback from a few parents, so I just had a conversation with a few, and it was all positive. The one thing they mentioned was it only was a week after the school year ended, but a lot of students already were out of their routine. So they appreciated that their students had to get up early and still kind of keep that same routine. And they spoke to mainly the safety and comfortability of just keeping their students at Ross because they were familiar with their staff, our procedures, and how we operate the school building. What made, I feel like, the pilot a success was the adult student ratio. maxing out at 15 students per grade. The teachers had input. I know when we visited North Kansas City prior to this pilot, they discussed having that it was more of a top-down approach. And we kind of had a teacher-led, and they even made up their own name, the Summer Bridge Program, and they made shirts. So just the buy-in from our staff was incredible. And then we also had support from our district admin, who many of them came to Ross multiple times, and many of the board members visited the site as well. We kept enrollment 60 for their first summer, and I think that was a positive as we were navigating a new program. Looking ahead, when I debriefed with our staff that had the summer school, we kind of discussed adding, I think that we could possibly add 2 teachers per grade level just based on the excitement and just how positive this summer went. We want to increase our student enrollment because obviously our goal is to keep raising academic achievement and getting our students as many opportunities as possible. And then really keep targeting and notifying students earlier. If you go to the next slide, Mr. Reinhardt, I'll just conclude with thank you, Board of Education and District Administration for supporting our program. And also just thank you to our staff who gave it the month of June to really make this a memorable summer. And I just include some pictures. The one in the middle is our group photo of all our staff and students. Another picture is from our physical education class where she did a great job of incorporating reading was her focus. And then one of our new teachers, Ms. Flores, did an excellent job. And then just their excitement to answer questions. Thank you, and I'll stand for any questions.
As we turn this over for questions, the teacher down at the bottom in the middle is one of our teachers from the Philippines. And so it's also provided an opportunity for teachers that are international to continue their year and have experiences in a small group setting. And we'll turn it over to you, President Tatum.
All right. Dr. Gardner, I thank you for being here and thank you for all the work that you and your team put in on making the summer program successful. I've got to ask, is this something that, in your opinion, you feel is worthwhile in doing again?
Yes, and I'll speak for our staff, just talking to them before the summer ended, they were excited. And I think honestly, it's going to make our year next year even more of a kickstart as they're excited. And I think it's beneficial to our students and community.
Good, good. All right. Dr. Schumacher?
Well, I was going to ask about, well, thank you, Dr. Gardner. I was going to ask about teachers and their excitement for the next summer, and Dr. Gardner already answered that. And so I think I would hope to maybe see some of the data around the fall map scores compared to the spring map scores as we think about not just at Ross, and I believe Scott did a similar pilot, but then is this a model that we expand and try to affect change in some of our other schools. And so I appreciate your time. I think one of the concerns we had initially was getting the staff to devote that time, but it sounds like it was rewarding enough to drum up some excitement, and maybe because it was teacher led. I think that was one of your strategies to try to create buy-in from the start.
All right. Anyone else? Dr. Bonebrick?
Yeah, Dr. Gardner, as the session progressed, was there more interest from students that were not participating that then decided, gee, I'd like to take part in this?
Yes, we did. I did have some parents reach out to me, as you know, parents talk. And yes, as the summer went on, honestly, it was more excitement. To be honest, at the start of the summer, some of the kids had a bad viewpoint of summer school, just kind of like the name of it. But once they were in the program and saw that we did have fun, and we did try to have some enrichment activities to really increase that student attendance. I think next year we could possibly even expand to having more students be a part of this.
Mrs. Bowley?
Could you explain to me how you want to look at the data in the fall? Are you just going to see if there were growth with these students? Or are you going to compare them with students, there other equals coming in that didn't have summer school? How will your data research look?
Ms. Bowley, great question. To be both. We want to look to make, the first thing is looking to see if these students progress, but then also comparing it to students who did not attend the Ross Summer School to really see if there's validity in continuing this program. As you know, our main focus is to continue to increase academic achievement.
Thank you. I'm really excited to see that data. Thank you.
We are too.
Me too. Anyone else? Oh, go ahead, Mrs. Bowling.
I just want to thank you and your staff that put the effort into this, giving up their June. Not just your school, but all the schools that were involved. It's a long school year, and then to add on to it, we just, as a school board, I know I speak for all of us, that we just appreciate those educators and administrators and food service and everyone that it takes to do this. We appreciate their efforts and time this summer. So please thank your staff for us, for sure.
We will, Ms. Bully. Thank you.
And as that presentation is concluded, again, we echo that, Dr. Gardner. Dr. Gardner asked to be 12 months so he could serve students and families all month. And one item that he didn't mention, which was really something he led, and one of the visits that I made to the building this summer, he was expanding his pantry and clothing bank and putting them all on the same side of the building, and staff and families were coming in. So just the volunteering, the literacy pieces, that in addition to the students, the community involvement was significant beyond what you might normally see. And his request to be 12 months so he can engage the community all year is tremendous. So again, thank you, Dr. Gardner, for the exceptional job you did this summer. And we're excited about next year. We do want to remind board members that once ESSER ends, we will have the challenge of what we pay teachers, because they were paid their traditional salaries over the summer, all through the ESSER funding, and this is the last year for that. So as we go into next year, now Dr. Gardner has, as have 7 other schools, requested a grant through the school improvement grant. So he may have less of a challenge with that compared to other buildings outside of those 8 schools in total. But that's just something for board members to remember. That does conclude our portion of the presentation. And while the second portion continues under superintendent's update, again, the next board meeting, both Scott, who had 300 students, both enrichment and then the reading and math camp, and all the other enrichment camps will be presenting at that time. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Tatum. I would be remiss if I didn't thank having so many people come out. Not everybody gets that. You know, sometimes you have a board vacancy and nobody shows up. But all of these folks that have come out that are parents and community members, it is delightful to see. And at the end of this, would love to extend the invitation to continue to work with whether it's Equity Council or DCAC or the school board, or just to meet with me and learn any of the items you want and spend other ways in the district. Even beyond tonight. So again, thank you, all of you.
I will wholeheartedly ditto those comments. Okay, so the next item on our agenda, it looks like we're down to action. We're doing discussion first. Okay. Okay, thank you for the reminder. So that takes us to item 20.2, proposed policy changes to personnel policies. And someone leading that discussion, is that you, Mrs. Whiteman? So
I certainly can review the memo that was provided to you. The changes in the policy are basically they're all personnel policies. The board policy committee continues through the personnel policy, which is one of the longest policy sections. And these policies are cleanup language, updating the language. In some of them, they are, thank you. In some of them, they are changing the names because the position has changed over the years and needed to be updated as organizational charts do change. And then the others are what I went through and the board policy committee went through, are tightening up some of the languages, reducing many of the words like that. There are a lot of terms and words that we use in our normal speech and sentences that get to be tightened and can be tightened up without affecting the meaning. So it was basically trying to basically keeps the policy, but just makes the language more concise and precise. Other than that, there are no substantial changes other than the cleanup changes.
Okay. Mr. Munoz.
Ms. Wyman, would you help me remember the small changes that we had on unpaid leave? Remember, I believe most of it was cleanup, but there was some changes regarding unpaid leave that you have here. Would you?
Sure, I'll need to look at the policy, or can you read the?
It says, clarified current practice that employees on parental leave may use any accumulated sick, disability leave or shared leave. Otherwise, FMLA leave is without pay. Deleted a reference to the statute and cited negotiated agreement.
Right, that change was, there was a reference to the statute. The statute was repealed about 5 years ago. The language was repealed because it no longer applies to certified teachers as far as any rights that they may have. And then it just referenced the negotiated agreement, which is where all the rights of the teachers related to leave are set forth. And then family medical leave is unpaid leave, but we added the two other options simply because that was the practice of the district to allow that type of use or that leave to be used under FMLA. Employees can use any accumulated leave that they have. We just specified the leave to make sure that it was consistent with current practice.
Okay, so it sounds like by and large, it's mostly just a cleanup of the language.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Any other questions? So this is an action item, so we are voting on this.
Oh, it's just a discussion item, as is the Mr. Minky
Right.
coming forward for the exceeding the revenue neutral. You've already heard him talk about that. Didn't know if there was more discussion or questions you have for Mr. Minky or Mr. Busey on the revenue neutral. Mr. Minky or Busey, did you have a comment that you'd like to make?
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Yeah, we just wanted to kind of continue our discussion and recap what Mr. Minky talked about at the prior meeting. We are looking to send over our intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate for this upcoming fiscal year. So the RNR, just to remind you, that simply means that we're going to collect more in tax dollars than we did in the prior year. You know, it doesn't depend on whether we raise our mill levy or not. As you all know, the housing market is continuing to rise. Appraisal values are going up, which increases our assessed values. So nothing for you to sign here tonight. This is just simply asking for your permission. This would be signed by the board clerk and Mr. Minky as the CFO. And it sets the ceiling for the max mill levy that we're allowed to levy as our final mill rate. So what we've proposed there, and it's in front of you, I know it's small, it's 44.45 mills. That is actually 0.09 mills less than what we've levied last year. I'm pretty sure you're aware that over the last 10 years or so, the district has been lowering the mill levy. And again, that's to kind of combat the rising appraised values and assessed values, because we have to be fair to our taxpayers, but we also still need to fund our schools. So the mill levy that Topeka Public Schools levies is comprised of 5 different funds. The general fund is the 20 mill fund. That is required by statute. That money, as a reminder, does not go to us. That goes directly to the state. And then our general fund budget is funded through FTEs, through kids, so counting kids. And we also levy in the supplemental general fund, the LOB, and both that and the general fund are used to cover our operating expenditures, pay salaries and such. We have capital outlay mill levy, that's, maintaining our buildings, purchasing equipment. We have a bond and interest mill levy that's used to pay on our principal and debt for our bond issues. And then finally, we have a special liability fund that's used for school district defense and to defend our employees. So are we going to exceed R&R this year? I think that's where we're headed, and that's what we'd like to get started here with you. KSDE has advised in publications and in the budget workshop to go ahead and send this intent no matter what, because if you don't, that could mean paying back tax dollars, if you accidentally collected more than what you'd sent forward. So if you could pull up that second attachment real quick. Mr. Minke went over this during the last meeting, but just want to touch on where we're at with the timeline. So we've already got our revenue neutral rates from the Shawnee County Clerk. We're here today because by July 20th, we have to send our intent over to the Shawnee County Clerk if we are wanting to exceed the revenue neutral rate, which we are. After that date, the clerk will send out notice to all the taxpayers with all the taxing districts and what their proposed mill levies are. And then it's time for us to publish our budget and hold our budget and R&R hearing. So on September 5th is the date we have slated for our revenue neutral rate and our budget hearing. That will be in the night where we'll actually ask you to sign a resolution and pass this by roll call vote. And then after that, it's really just some closing items where we send our budget over to the Department of Education, and then we would certify our budget. So yes, I'm just asking for your permission to send this over to the county clerk. And with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions that you might have.
So at this time, as this action item, Mrs. Lister will turn this back over to you to lead this action item, which is what we're going back up to at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Busey or Mr. Minke? Okay, looks like there are none. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to move forward with this action item.
I move to approve the intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate 2024-2025 as discussed and presented.
Right. Do we have a second for that motion? Dr. Bonebreak seconds. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, we'll go to a vote.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, and so here's the moment we've all been waiting for. The last action item on our to-do list for tonight is the possible action on candidates for the board vacancy. And just as a reminder for board members and a little bit of education for those sitting in the audience, there will be nominations for filling the board vacancy. And if that nomination gets a second, we'll move to a vote. And then the candidate with the first candidate with 4 votes wins the board position. It's likely that we will probably be able to complete this process this evening. Not sure exactly how long that's going to take or how many rounds we're going to go through. Dr. Bonebreak?
would it be easier on the candidates? I mean, frankly, they're great and they could replace any one of us. But would it be easier on the candidates if they left the room and easier on us to vote if they were out of the room or went home? And we know,
Okay, Mrs. Whiteman's shaking her head no.
I can't do that.
Would you care to explain, Mrs. Whiteman?
Right, it's a new experience. While I think you're very kind and thoughtful in your question, this is a public meeting. Everyone has a right to attend, and individuals may not be excluded unless they are disruptive and create a disruption which prevents the business of the board from being conducted.
There you have it. So, okay, it looks like we have a potential motion. Mr. Munoz, are you suggesting a nomination? You'd like to nominate? Please.
I'd like to nominate, all of them are amazing, but I'd like to nominate Ms. Staley. And what I've read and what I've heard, I think this person stands out to myself. So I'm looking for second.
Okay. Do we have a second for that motion?
Sure. Yes, we need to move forward with our vote. So
Okay. Okay. Well, if there's no second, the motion will die.
Somebody makes another motion for a different candidate.
Are you still wanting to second it, Mrs. Boley?
these candidates are really hard. To
They're all good.
I got such a tie in my head. Yes, I will second that motion.
Okay. Okay. Mrs. Boley seconds. Any further discussion? Okay. With no further discussion, we will move to a vote. I'm sorry, these 3 and 3. Okay, so the motion fails. Okay. Looking for Mrs. Schmidt.
I would like to move Ashley Beeson as a candidate to replace Ms.
Okay.
Stewart.
Okay. Dr. Schumacher seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll vote. Congratulations, Dr. Beeson. You're our new colleague on the board. Thank you to all of you wonderful board candidates. This has been fantastic. I would absolutely encourage all of you to take Dr. Anderson up on her offer to keep you guys engaged. And there'll be other opportunities, whether it's on the board or to do something closely related to that we hope will come your way and that you'll take us up on those too. Thank you. Yes, Mrs. Bowling.
A year from November, there's an election. Each of you may run for this position
That's true.
or any other position that's in your area. So please, we are just so impressed that we have 5 candidates that came out. We hope you don't stop there, and election is that next step. So please consider that, getting in the race and looking for any positions that we have on our board. So thank you.
Dr. Beeson, administration will be reaching out to you to kind of do some onboarding for bringing you into the board dynamics starting next meeting. Yeah. Okay. All right. We are now ready for board member comments or committee reports. I'll say right now, I don't think I had any committees since we met last. So I don't have anything to report, so I'm going to keep things short and sweet. Dr. Bonebrake, let's go to you.
Wellness Committee was unwell, so it didn't meet. The Health Insurance Committee did meet. Basically is the same old, same old. We're getting older and bigger and never mind. But the costs are going to remain the same for one more year. There is a benefits fair, I believe August 5th at Bishop, 10 a.m. to 4 a.m. to explain to all the employees what their insurance benefits and retirement and all that good stuff. That was it.
Thank you. Mrs. Bowley?
I've had a couple of meetings since our last report out. Of course, the Finance Committee, which is revenue neutral, was our biggest discussion. So the committee thanks the board for supporting that. Thank you for doing that. We had a technology committee meeting, and I'm pulling up our minutes from that. I will be there in a second. Sorry, I had to turn my phone off because it went crazy. It had nothing to do with me. You know how that is. Oh my goodness. I will get back to that. Maybe you can find that. Thank you. Thanks. And then we also had a policy committee with Head Start. They are working on their grant materials and we've looked at all of their documents that will be on our next board agenda for you to approve, and then they will give that to Head Start. This is the last year for this grant funding for Head Start, and then they'll start a new cycle. It's an important one, and so if you have a chance to read it, go through it, or at least have some understanding of it, it is an important grant, and the team has done just an outstanding job putting it together. So very exciting. I think we will probably get that grant, but it's always, always, it's a grant. So also, other comments. So the last 2 months in the State Board of Education meetings, they are talking about a new accreditation situation. It is on YouTube, and it might be something to just look for that particular piece so you have kind of an understanding of the changes coming to our district and what our team is going to need to put in place. We do so much of it already. I mean, I don't think this is going to be a big hurdle, but just for board understanding of how our district gets accredited, they are starting a new process. So they do a nice job explaining that. It's on YouTube. You just put in Kansas State Board of Education, put in the month, and the year is really important, 2024, to listen to those meetings. Also, another thing that I'm going to get a little political here, I guess, because another thing I wanted to bring up is there's a Plan 2025 that talks about funding for education. And so that might be something to understand. It's a huge document, but people have whittled it down to give you an idea of what it means to education. Be like at the platform at the Republican convention. So it's just something to be educated on, to understand what type of funding that they would be interested in giving public education. a couple of thank yous and recognition. Miss Wiles is going to be inducted into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. She is our director at Hummer Park. We're just so proud of her. Another person that's been recognized is Mr. Reynolds for Administrative Award for our Fine Arts Department here in Topeka Public Schools, recognition there. We had, I might be jumping forward, but we had a finalist, top 10 in our teacher preparation program, our teacher's pathway. Can I say anything, or are you going to do that next time? Okay, I'll wait on that, but we did have a finalist, and so we're just very happy about that. And I also want to thank our staff that have taken our students on travels this year. We've had groups go to Washington, D.C. We've had a singing group go international from Topeka West. And I just want to thank those educators that have made those opportunities for those students in the summertime. It's just really exciting to see those posts and see that we are getting our students outside the walls and seeing our world a little bit. So thank you to all of them for their efforts. Done.
Right. Thank you. Mrs. Schmidt.
I don't have any committee updates. I do want to thank all our candidates for putting yourselves out there. I know it's kind of hard, especially if it's something you haven't done, sometimes even if you've done it before, you know, if you're not like a career politician, to put yourself out there can be uncomfortable. So I appreciate that. And in listening to you all speak, it was a very difficult decision. You all have some very unique characteristics that I think would really benefit Topeka Public Schools. So please don't feel like this is the end of something. There are lots of opportunities, you know, with mental health, with policy and the equity committee, with all of these things that we could easily plug you guys in and still use your unique capabilities and your experiences that you would bring to that. So please, please don't see it as a stopping point. I encourage you to stay engaged in however that is. And I just hope everybody's having a wonderful summer. I've got a quick personal note. I became a grandma for time number 2 on Monday morning at 9:38.
Congratulations.
So yeah, I'm really excited about that. So thanks.
All right. Mr. Munoz.
Yep, I was able to squeeze in 2 visits at the end of June after our last meeting, one to Williams and the second to Scott. And so the students were engaged and they were happy to be there. You know, and I want to reference back to this idea that some of our funds are going to end. And so we will have to make hard decisions. And one of the things why I think these programs are so important is that it gives our students who are struggling during the school year, you know, an additional support that they need. And when we think of what are ways that we can help students who need it the most to be able to make up some ground, these summer programs are ways to be able to be intentional and hyper-focused on students who could use that. So let's just keep that in mind in the future when we have to make those sort of decisions on what stays and what is able to move forward. And second thing is I asked our presidents if they would invite some city officials to come to talk about a safe routes to school report that was done recently. They looked at pedestrians and walking, and within that sort of subset of walkers in Topeka, they looked at our students who walk to school every day. And I think it's an important thing to look at, especially because oftentimes those students who have to walk are ones who, you know, just don't have somebody to drop them off. And so that impacts our students, and there's sort of an equity issue, I think. And so listening to this report, being aware of our schools and the sort of the status when it comes to walking to schools is important, and begin to sort of think about what are ways that we might be able to sort of address that or support efforts that might address that. And I'm speaking specifically to some funds that the city recently received that look at sidewalks and safety. Could some of that, you know, be able to address this? So in the future, I believe we'll have this speaker come and talk to us about safe routes to schools, make sure our students are getting to school safely. That's all for me.
All right. Thank you. Dr. Schumacher.
So I'll cover the technology committee update. We discussed some of the new technology going in, specifically the iPads into kindergarten, first grade, and working on getting ready for when the teachers return. There were a few hiccups along the way, but it looks like because of a lot of hard work, they're going to be in place when teachers return. Gail talked to us about some of the features with Google Plus upgrade and some of the improvements around Google Classroom. And hopefully there will be some more kind of training opportunities on that. We talked about technology nights, ways to get devices to new staff sooner. So then that doesn't interrupt some of the orientation time, some of our new staff orientation. We talked about some of the cybersecurity and some of the training that we do. And then we talked about the Tyler Munis conversion a little bit more. And then we also had personnel meeting since our last report out, which yep, we are still working. And there was actually quite a bit of hiring that happened today, I believe, hopefully. So with our career fair. And I would also like to, it's been said many times, but I appreciate everyone who came tonight, their time, their commitment, and their passion, not just for our district that we all love, but also for public education, because at times it does feel like not everybody feels the same way that the 6 of us do. I had to count. Whether that's shown through being here tonight, service on DCAC and PTOs and past experiences, but also, as others have said, hopefully future experiences. Because as Dr. Bonebrake said, you guys are definitely people out there that could take some of our positions and do a lot better. I won't say who that is. That's all I have for tonight.
And I, just to piggyback off of what Dr. Schumacher just said, candidates, if you guys would indulge us and give us a few more minutes here right after we adjourn here in a few moments, I think all of us would really enjoy making a face-to-face acquaintance with you and shaking your hand to tell you thank you for being here this evening. So if that's okay with you, please do hang around while we wrap up here. And that takes us to the end of our meeting. And without any further ado, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. You've got it.
I move the meeting adjourned.
Do we have a second for that motion? Mrs. Bowley seconds. I'm not going to ask for discussion. Show of hands. We are adjourned.